What can you tell us about the latest with Jordan De Goey?
Well, the big news was Monday night, of course, while we were sleeping, that the New York prosecutors dropped the sex assault charges relating to this latest indiscretion, this Halloween horror show, if you like, in the early hours of October 30 at Chelsea's Dream Hotel there in Manhattan. So he had been hit with forcible touching, De Goey, forcibly touching a 35-year-old female. We know that. It carried a maximum 1-year jail term, but he's now left with 4 separate assault and harassment charges that remain on the table, and you guys were talking about that earlier on this morning. So De Goey and his friend Luke Dyson are alleged to have attacked a 37-year-old man who is said to have come to the woman's aid during the incident around 2:30 in the morning at the PhD rooftop lounge. Now, New York police are alleging that De Goey committed harassment, aggravated harassment, assault with intention to cause physical injury, and attempted assault with intention to cause physical injury. They say De Goey punched with a closed fist, kicked the man, continuing to do so when the man was on the ground. Now, he could still do jail time for these charges. He has pleaded not guilty. De Goey's new manager, his brother-in-law Ryan Vega, is now referring all questions to his client's lawyer, who is Jacob Kaplan of the well-publicised and the powerful New York legal firm Braffman and Associates. But he has said that De Goey will release a statement this week. He has also indicated that De Goey would return to California to continue training, which is where this whole thing started, this US stint at the W training facility, of course, as part of that sponsorship deal with Monster Energy. But where it goes from here, and the court case on December 8, which he's still required to attend in New York, remains to be seen.
Okay, so we've had our says on this, so we won't back over it. But will he stay in the States until that court case?
That is unclear at the moment, whether he, as part of his bail conditions, he is allowed to fly back to Melbourne or not, or he has to remain in the US. As part of his conditions, he's only required to check in once a week via phone. That is written into the bail conditions, whether he can return to Australia or not, and then have his hearing even potentially heard by video link, as has been suggested in some quarters, and then, you know, if things go pear-shaped, he could be extradited back. Who knows what could happen? Dyson and his friends facing similar charges. But while Jordan De Goey's kept a low profile on the socials, his mate Dyson has not. He's lived the high life in New York, helicopter rides over Manhattan, New York Knicks games, etc. So he's just carrying on with life. De Goey had been granted that special exemption to get there. I know a lot of people have got an issue with that. It was a sponsorship deal, so a work arrangement. And the case is still to determine, I think, whether he plays for Collingwood again, because even after the court case is heard in New York, the AFL Integrity Department will get involved, Collingwood will get involved. The AFL could bring him, the charge, of course, bringing the game into disrepute. There could be an internal suspension. Who knows where we go from here? Who knows whether some more charges get thrown out? It remains to be seen.
Yeah, but that would only be determined upon what happens and how this plays out in the courts. If it does, in fact, go into the courts, whether or not the AFL step in and say, okay, you brought the game into disrepute.
Perhaps.
I mean, would they not be waiting to see how this actually plays out before they make that statement?
No, they will. Yep.
Wood tends to buckle and bend under the Aussie sun, but not with Q-Tech. See, unlike other wood coatings that only protect the surface of the wood, Q-Tech gets right inside to nourish and protect it. Order your free Q-Tech sample today at cutek.com.au.
I would think if that happened anywhere here in Melbourne, there would be CCTV vision that would capture whatever took place inside a nightclub.
I was saying to Gary before, there would have to be CCTV. All those clubs would have
and
vision.
in America in particular, and New York in particular.
So surely that comes out on
Who's
December.
the last player stood down for a fight in a bar? Like deregistered or stood down?
For a fight in a bar specifically. Well, Sydney obviously had their example, a very serious allegation with an assault, a domestic assault. The Sydney player that stood down.
Well, you got the two
last year.
That was domestic assault.
Yeah, it was.
You got the two Richmond players outside the kebab place up there on the Gold Coast.
Callum Coleman-Jones and
they both got stood down by Richmond.
Not sacked.
No, but they got stood down.
Yeah. So, but we haven't had. Has there been a player sacked?
Oh, actually sacked, driven out of the game. I don't think so. I think that here the complexity of all this is that there is a standard maximum penalty which is applied through the negotiation at the collective bargaining.
Fine, 5,000.
Yeah, that's right. But then the AFL Commission would have to come in over the top of all that and deregister a player because of whatever it might be that they deem that was to the game, disrepute, bringing the game into disrepute. Yeah.
But it's not. We're not just dealing with this in isolation, of course, are we? And it's coming at such a fascinating time for Collingwood, who are trying to drive cultural change. They've had a difficult 12 months. They've got a revamped board. They've got a new coach, a new coaching team. And this is a serial offender in Jordan De Goey. Yes, innocent until proven guilty, but string of driving offences. He's been suspended by the club before for lying about how he broke his hand in a bar fight. Of course, he blamed it on the dog. There was the incident in 2015, charged in 2018. Yes, those charges were dropped. They were dropped. So it's a build-up of events that's come to the here and now. And keep in mind, from a strictly football point of view, he's had a contract next year as a free agent, along with Darcy Moore and Braden Maynard. And the Pies were going to have that trio were going to take up so much of their list planning next year in terms of the pie and how it's going to be divided for those three. You wonder how this affects that as well.
So, Sammy, does he play for Collingwood next year?
You just can't say at this point, can you? I think there's going to be a suspension. I can't see him playing round one. Of course, he could. That's just my guesstimated assumption that he will not play round one. I think there'll be a suspension of some kind, whether it's from Collingwood or whether it's via the AFL.
Does Craig McRae make a stand and just go bang?
What's bang?
6 months or out of the club.
Could do. Yeah, I don't think that's beyond the realms of possibility.
Set the standard, set the culture.
Certainly the charges being dropped from a sexual harassment point of view is a big win for Jordan De Goey. I think if he was spitballing, if that went all the way to trial and he was found guilty of that, then I think that would have been a deal breaker.
I think you've got to go back to what the other penalties have been applied to players that have been involved in similar circumstances. And that's what we're talking about before. What were the penalties that are applied by the game or by the club? And I think we all are understanding that these things don't just happen in isolation when penalties are applied to. There's always a negotiation that takes place between the club and the AFL. And the AFL pretty much have to sanction whatever it is that the club announces.
So the last sacking, as you mentioned, while completely and wildly different, the name I was searching for was Elijah Taylor. That was the last player to be sacked for an off-field. But again, very, very different.
That was
to this
different
one.
too, though.
The disappointing thing for everyone here is where he was at the end of the footy season compared to where he is now. And at the end of that season, he looked like a player that, again, got into the midfield, played really well in the back half of the year, thought that was where he was going to play maybe for the rest of his career, so decided to get fit, and took it upon himself, however he did it.
Yeah.
And through his own actions.
It was his best year, wasn't it?
I don't know if it was his best year, but it was his best.
Consistent.
It was his most optimistic finish to the year in terms of him fulfilling his potential.
I know 2018 he was good, but I just thought over the journey for this season, it was substantial, week upon week in a lot of cases. So we'll see what happens